Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday. I'm a girl dad. I don't know that it's ever shown up so clearly on the show. I'm Jason. That's Deacon. We are your internet dads, and we're late. I'm late. It's my fault. I'm late. But you know what? Being late is going to be a thing of the past. That's going to change.
Hey, y'all, watch
this today.
Famous last words. Hello. Yeah. My middle daughter turned 15 Sunday.
Congratulations.
No, congratulations are not in order. She can now legally, by Kentucky law passed this year, obtain her permit.
Yeah, she can get to drive, and then...
You're standing up. I need to move my camera because I look like I'm...
Well, here, does this help? Let me see if this helps. Does this help? No, yeah, wait, that's wrong.
That's perfect right there.
No.
My best friend since high school, Dave. Speaking of my best friend since high school, my best friend since high school is 6'8". He's been 6'8" since the 8th grade, and I can't hear you.
Yeah. Oh, come on with it. Wait, Dave. All right,
so
I'm
used to hanging around tall people. I'm used to feeling short.
No.
6 foot tall. No,
can't
Dave.
Hear you, Dave.
We can't hear you. You want me to do your voice?
You can't hear me? Can't hear you. No, you have to choose a microphone. You have to use a microphone to talk on the internet. So
you're muted. Oh, now you're not muted. I don't know. Welcome to Rumble, though, and this is the Internet Dad Show.
Yeah, right.
We just sit around and talk.
Well, you usually talk about whatever's in the news, but the news, let's be honest.
There's been a lot of stuff in the news
ever since then.
But there's been a lot of stuff interesting in the news, but it's stuff that, I mean, I would really get in trouble talking about, probably. Yeah. I mean,
like what would you get in trouble talking about? Who would get in trouble with you? How would that happen?
We could talk about the Pope dying, but if I started talking about that, I would get in trouble with somebody. They would get mad at me.
You know, a lot of people like the Pope. I don't like or dislike. I don't have nothing to do with the Pope. So, you know, I'm sorry that your boy passed on.
Things die.
Well, that's true. Okay. We're waiting for Dave to try to come back here. Yeah. All right. So let me tell you, I guess, a story. I don't know if it's a story with talent or not, but I've been married for coming up on 20 years, Deacon.
Mm-hmm.
19 years, and this October will be 20 years. And when I got married, I was gifted by my Uncle John, who is a lifelong mechanic. I was gifted this toolbox. That toolbox. Let me put this up here. And for 19 and a half out of the last 19 and a half years, that toolbox has had a bunch of tools in it, and it either sat here or on a different shelf at a different house over there somewhere. And it was just like tools, and they just get piling up on top. It was just like a toolbox, and then they filled up, and then it's like, well, there's a little room on top, so I'm going to put some more tools on top. And pretty much the same as for my workbench. So my workbench has been like that too. Now, right now there's stuff on it because I'm sorting screws. You ever do housework and you're like, oh, I got 2 extra screws. You throw them in a box. I got these 2 extra screws or whatever I'm doing to throw them in a box. Well, I got like a box of a bunch of different kinds of screws. I don't know. What's the thread, the length, the tie? I have no idea. I don't know. It's just a bunch of different ones. So I'm just
throw them in a coffee can. And when you need a screw, dump that coffee can out, grab about 15 or 20, sit there and try for 10 minutes until you find the right one, put them back in the coffee can, put it on the shelf.
Time out.
Dave's got a better way.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. We can hear you now.
So
disappointed. I'm disappointed, Dave, because I wanted to see Galvatron.
Yeah.
Right.
So you do everything that Deke said, get your coffee can, put it all in there, in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then determine that none of those work, go to the hardware store and buy yourself too many screws,
that's the
and then
truth.
come back and finish it. You forgot to go to the hardware store, because you will never use any of those extra screws that you have, but you will be glad that you have them for the time
But
that you might.
see, my dad's one of these guys that there are literally like 2 huge coffee cans out in his garage that have been there for 30 years that are full of bolts and screws of all
Right.
shapes, sizes.
Mhm.
And what me and my brother do is there's something out there that's
What the
gonna
heck
fit
is
it.
my
You just have
coffee?
to look for it.
I'm gonna need this screw.
You're gonna need a
At some
drywall screw at some point in your life.
At
Yeah,
some
that
point,
that's
I'm gonna
that's
need
very usable.
Yeah,
right.
drywall screws are usable.
And like this bolt right here, this bolt Phillips had, it's I don't know, inch and a
Yeah,
half.
you'll use that. Why not?
There's got to be a place that I need to put this.
Well, is it a dome or a socket? I can't tell.
That's a dome. That's a
Okay, well, I
dome.
can't tell if no, it doesn't have a flat edge.
You
Yeah.
can't see it. No, it's a Phillips head.
Okay.
Phillips head domed.
They can still have sockets.
Head.
That's funny.
So
Ryan says that he has a coffee can full of random screws and bolts too, and then he ends up having to go to the hardware store.
and then you have more in your coffee can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ryan, you're right, sir. As soon as you get rid of it, you're gonna need it. And that has absolutely been like my whole probably adult life. I'm gonna hold on to this because I'm gonna need it. And then I'm like, finally, after 10 years, I'm like, okay, I obviously didn't need this. Let me throw it away. Literally the next day, I'm like, I needed that thing.
Yeah.
This happens to me when I turkey hunt too. This past weekend I was out. I got into a nest of ticks. I hate life right now. But at any rate, I'll sit all day, hear nothing, and then I'll decide to unload my gun and head back to the vehicle because I do practice some safe. I don't like walking around with a loaded weapon. But for 3 years in a row, every time I would unload and start walking, the turkey would come out.
Yeah.
Just when I don't need it. And it's like, forget stupid bird.
Yeah. One year when I was deer hunting,
clear, Johnny.
One year when I was deer hunting, the same thing happened. I was hunting out in this little area, like 300-yard field, and then there was this little incrop, and I was hunting there, didn't see anything all day. I come back to the truck, meet my dad, my brother at the truck. I'm unloading the gun, and Dad's like, "What's that out there?" And about 300 yards, standing 50 yards from my deer stand, was just nothing but antlers. So
you didn't take the shot?
I did. Yards? I did. I was using a 30. I was using a 308, and I put the crosshairs about an inch above his back.
2 inch.
And I saw dirt fly underneath his feet before he jumped and ran straight where my deer stand was. I know. I was like, "You got to be kidding me."
So I'm putting I told you about this yesterday, Deacon. I've told you about it before. I'm putting my company in this garage. I'm taking the servers. I'm putting them in here. I got to get air conditioning piped in here, 50 amp fuse or whatever. But in preparation for that, I have been cleaning my garage out. I've been doing the work that needed to be done for years, removing tools from the tool bench, getting them do some sorting things, doing plenty of that. Part of that was buying the pegboard. So I bought and hung a pegboard. And then I realized I don't know how to use a pegboard. I don't know.
I mean, you don't have to take a college course. Stick the little thing in the hole.
Yeah.
Well, look, it hangs out.
Yeah. There's putting pegs on a pegboard, and then there's making it organized, making it useful.
You bought the square dowel rods for the circle peg holes, didn't you? And you can't get the square in the circle.
I told him, Dave, a minute ago off camera, I told him, I was like, you organize it. It looks fine back there now. But I was like, here in next year, you're going to be like, dude, I'm always reaching up here to grab this hammer. I'm moving this hammer down here because I'm always having to. And here in about 20 years, you're going to be like, oh, I'm hurting reaching up for this C-clamp. I'm going to go.
That's not okay. That's not okay. And you're right.
Honestly, if you move your head, I can see your wire strippers and your,
I keep the C-clamps clamped to the table in front of you, so you always, yeah, I wouldn't reach for C clamps
You
ever.
can't. Well, you can see it actually. I got a power bar right here, so I can't clamp
Oh,
that.
no, you can't.
I mean,
Yeah.
See, I don't got a
oh,
power bar.
that
Mine's
power
like
bar is very
mine's not
useful.
fancy.
I bet
Yeah,
that
that is.
power
That's
bar is
fancy.
useful.
So you're right about the hammer. Like one of the first things I did, because I hung it. This is like the third or fourth time that I've hung all the tools up here. And the first
How
time
many
I
of them
was
still
just
have the
like,
price tags on them?
none of them.
Good,
That's the
good.
newest. That's the newest tool, and I bought that months ago. But most of these I've had for like 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
But the hammers, this hammer right here. Let me tell you about this hammer. This
Killed a man in 1814.
Is it named MC? Because I would name my
It's
hammer
not.
MC.
It's not impossible that it's named MC. This hammer was gifted to me by my grandfather when he was
Ooh.
alive,
Ooh.
and so
Ooh, that's
this hammer is sentimental to me. And this is the first hammer that I use if I have
Yeah.
to hammer anything. Like this is the one I get. I got a new one there, and there's a, not a middle-aged one behind that, but like when I need something hammered. This is the one I get, because when I hold this hammer, I think about my grandfather.
Yeah, that's
Love it.
awesome.
And so
For anybody out there that's wanting to get like good tools and you don't want to go to Home Depot and get, I'm being serious. If you will go to some of these auctions and estate sales and stuff around, you can usually get boxes of assorted tools and stuff like that for like $10, $15, something like that. Used to. I'm sure
some of those things that are broken, you can repurpose. Like if you get an old rasp, oh my word, those are so cool to turn into knives. You have to do a little forging.
Really?
It's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
forgery.
Yeah. Forging. Forgery.
You need do some forging.
Man, still fire.
And this has been Tool Talk with Internet Dad.
It says Garage Edition. This is the Garage Edition. Hold on, let's see. I love those screw organizing drawers, but I always have to check every drawer. Yeah, so that's a problem. Okay, so he's talking about this right here.
Freaking the part, the Shop-A-Rama looking through every drawer.
So this actually is also a gift from when I got married. This is a gift from my dad. And I honestly don't remember anything else that showed up when we got married, but I remember this, and I remember that. I remember the toolbox over there. Those two things. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you things that matter to me. My dad gave me this, and he gave it to me labeled, and it basically had a bunch of things you might need in a house, right? Some nails, some screws, some hinges, some those little circle things you want to screw something to the ceiling and then hang it, the little eye hooks. So and it still has all the labels that he put on it, but over the years I have exhausted things and then put other things back in there. And so that's what I'm doing now, as I'm going through all of this this coffee can of bolts that I have here, and like what so Saturday I spent probably an hour organizing nails. So this entire middle row right here is various kinds of nails, from roofing nails to common nails to finishing nails. So he gets so bored.
What? Do what?
Deke's working.
Yeah. Ryan says, I know.
No, it's cool that you got it in and whatnot. I'm trying.
Ryan's brother bought an entire garage of tools for $1,000, and then sold it for profit. Okay. Anyway,
probably, yeah, that's a great idea.
I don't know what I'm doing. Pretty much like this show or anything else. I'm just like winging it. See what works.
Let me see. There was
let me make you
a couple of things. I haven't really been paying attention to anything. The girl that unalived herself. Can before we get into this, can I say something here real quick?
Sure.
In 150 years, the word kill is not going to exist anymore in the English language.
You think so?
Because algorithms will ban your videos if you say certain words. So they use different words to trick the algorithm and to trick the AI. So they will say unalived. And so think about it, the way that language goes. In 50 years, that will be what is said. That guy unalived her, Your Honor.
Yeah, so that's actually because of TikTok. TikTok is the one that did that. TikTok,
It's on every one of them.
Well, yeah, it's on every one of them because people do everything on TikTok and then repost it on YouTube. But that's where that trend came from.
Facebook and Instagram have been a lot longer than TikTok has.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, but that trend of saying that word unalive.
Well, that was just an example. There's several of them that.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's from the AI, but anyway, that Epstein chick that is no longer with us. Isn't that sad?
She was a victim.
Yes, she was a victim,
and
she was one who was caught.
Absolutely. She was a victim. She tried to expose Prince Andrew. She was hit by a bus, and she survived.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Or 3 weeks ago. Just recently.
And survived and was pulling and made a video that said, "I am not suicidal. My therapist knows this." And then she committed suicide. So, if you haven't heard,
is that what happened?
Yeah, that's
what. Okay. Died by suicide.
Died by suicide.
Yeah, not committed. Died by.
Yeah, whatever.
There's nuance difference.
What's the nuance difference?
Commit indicates a crime.
Oh, really?
Yes, commit indicates a crime. You commit a crime. But if you die by suicide, it just makes it. When we say commit suicide, it keeps the taboo. So individuals who are struggling with suicidal ideations, they're less likely to seek help.
I don't see it that way.
That's fine. This is like
the word commit is used, can be used
months,
in several
years of training. So I'm going to disagree with you strongly on this.
And that's fine, but your training is in law enforcement, and that
Not
word
just law enforcement.
But that word, when used, it can be an immoral act, which is not a crime. But if you're committing a moral act against yourself, I would argue that commit. I see where you're coming from, and I don't disagree, but I would argue that commit could be used in that context but that's just me. The English language is 3 different languages. The English language, I've always heard this. The English language is 3 different languages disguised as one in a trench coat walking around. And once you JJ should know, because he's in a Spanish English household. And when my children were learning to read and stuff, and we had taught them phonetics, and I had taught them phonetics because I make my money with language and have for 3 decades. And I would teach him these phonetics and stuff, and when they would see a word and try to sound it out, I realized real quick as a parent that there was a lot of times that I'm having to go, well, that's technically correct, but there is a silent P and a Q, there's all these letters that we don't use. And he would ask why. And I would be like, well, that's because that's a French word, but it's now an English word. So it's a French word. So you can't use the English language rules on the English French word. You just have to be like, okay, there's a silent Y there. Or whatever. There's a silent T.
Well, I think Dave is talking about the term commit.
No, commit to carry out, perpetrate a mistake, crime, or immoral act.
Right.
A pledge and a personal organization.
And they say commit suicide to passively
carried out
imply negative action.
You are putting the negative on that word. That word is not negative. Commit is not a negative word. It can mean a negative connotation. Perpetrate.
Yeah. When do you perpetrate something goodly?
Perpetrate is not a negative word. It just has a negative connotation because that's the way we use it. I use that with the word consequences. When I say the word consequences, you automatically think that this is a negative thing coming. And a consequence is not necessarily negative. There are very many positive consequences from an action. But us as humans and as in 2025 in our language, when I say certain words like commit, perpetrate,
Right.
consequences, we have heard that so many times in a negative connotation that we are drawn to think, oh, consequences. Dave's like, I had some
So
consequences today, and you
if we're
automatically think that
Okay.
he's something bad. Yeah, I know.
if we're talking about the word commit, good or bad, remove it.
Right.
Die by suicide, or a non-lethal
Perfect.
suicide, because there are individuals who suicide, but their suicide is non-lethal, meaning they live. And those
Attempt. That's an attempt, right?
Yep.
well, attempt means failure. And if
And
you
they
got
did.
somebody who's
It's
depressed,
true.
whew, yeah. So a non-lethal suicide. But
See,
these are just like little.
I don't like these little nuance and whitewashing of our words
I
because
don't know if it's
we are
whitewashing. I'm
really,
being very clear that it was a non-lethal suicide. Their
I know,
goal
but
was to die by suicide, but it
right.
was non-lethal.
And that works, but so does attempted suicide in my book because you attempted to end your life and
Correct.
you failed. So that is an attempt. You may be depressed and whatnot, but you are still
Mhm.
breathing. You know,
I was just answering a bunch of these text messages this morning. I had an individual saying, "Hey, there's somebody who I'm trying to figure this out. What do you say? What do you do?" So I was going through all this stuff, which is partially why I was late for the show this morning.
yeah.
But
I
You were
was,
forgiven.
I used to work for this company, and I had to go through. I had to go to juvenile court in different counties every day, and I would um, get ankle monitors and community service and stuff like this for these juveniles. And I would monitor these ankle monitor kids. And I was going out one night and I was getting ready and we had plans. And this kid called me that I was monitoring an ankle monitor and he was really down in it. And I spent 3 hours talking to this 17-year-old kid who thought his life was ending, and over. So I don't have as much experience as you, but I know how that is from that and from the other side, from a personal level.
Mhm.
I'm not the happiest jovial man and have been my whole life. I can easily, my ADHD makes me spiral very quickly. So I like entomology. I like words and
Fascinating.
I like
Words
how,
are so
uh,
fluid.
yes, it's the study is so interesting how how we changed the meanings of words over the years. Um, what was I playing the other day? My Old Kentucky Home. I played a
Mhm.
Loretta Lynn version of My Old Kentucky Home from her very last album, and she was the sun shines bright, and she's like everyone is happy and gay. And when you hear that word now in that song, you're like, everybody's dancing and prancing. But that word has changed so much in such a very little time. We have completely changed the definition of a word. A nice guy back 100 years ago, if I said Dave's a nice guy, that meant that he was he was a made man, he was in the mafia, and he was going to probably steal your liquor and resell it.
Then you go back even further. In France, nice meant ignorant, dumb.
Bring
I
back the letter thorn. What does that mean? What's the letter thorn? Do we have a missing letter that I never knew about?
I know that. What is that?
Type that letter in the chat, Ryan. I want to see what it looks like.
Wait a minute. I know that.
The kids and I were talking the other day about W. Like most of your letters in the alphabet, B sounds like what it is. W has no D's, it has no U's. Why is W
It
W?
really, I heard a kid say one time that W should really be double V. And I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whoa.
In
So
French,
in
it's W.
yeah, in Spanish it's W also.
Okay, let me read some of these to you. My dad loves this kind of stuff, and he just sent to me this last night because he's always forwarding me stuff, and this one was really good. Let's see. It's talking about most people got married in June because they took their yearly bath in May, and they still smelled pretty good by June. Since they were all starting to smell, however, brides carried a bouquet of flowers to hide the body odor. And since the custom of today's carrying a bouquet when getting married, baths consist of a big tub filled with hot water. The man of the house had the privilege of the nice, clean bath water, then all the sons and the men, then the women, and finally the children, and last of all, the babies.
Ew.
I've heard this 100 times. Last of all, the babies. By then, the water was so dirty that you could actually lose someone in it. Hence the saying, don't throw the baby out with the bath water. Houses had thatched roofs, thick straw piled high with no wood underneath. It was the only place for animals to get warm, so the cats and other small animals, mice, bugs, lived in the roof. So when it rained, it became slippery, and sometimes the animals would slip and fall off the roof, resulting in its raining cats and dogs. I don't know if all these are true. Okay. I know that one about the baby in the bathwater is. There was nothing to stop things from falling in the house. This posed a real problem for the bedroom where bugs and other droppings could mess up your nice clean bed. Therefore, a bed with big posts and a sheet hung over the top afforded some protection. That's how canopy beds came into existence.
That one, no.
That one, no? Okay.
Yeah, I can explain that one in a minute. Go ahead.
Okay. The floor was dirt. Only the wealthy had something other than dirt, leading folks to coin the phrase dirt poor. The wealthy had slate floors that would get slippery. I've heard this. I knew this about thatch or the threshold. The wealthy had slate floors. And so when it would get slippery, they would throw straw and whatnot on the floor to get your footing. And that's thatch. And after a while, walking in and out, all of it would, that's not thatch, it's thresh. And after a while, walking in and out, it would always kind of go out the door and blow out the door. So they would put a piece of wood in front of the door, and that was called the threshold. What was the other one? Oh, it talks about cooking. You know, they would have a big pot with mainly vegetables because meat was rare. And when you didn't finish it, they would let it go cold. And then they would just add more in the morning, and you would keep eating out of the same pot for a long time.
Oh, yeah. Well, that used to be the breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot 9 days old.
Ew.
And then it talks about how the bacon was a sign of wealth. If you could bring home the bacon, then you were probably pretty wealthy, and you would show off the bacon. If you were having a party or you having visitors over, you would have the bacon hung up to show it off, to show that you were wealthy, and you would cut a piece off, and you and whoever would sit outside and chew the fat while you talked.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, we have all these euphemisms now that you like to use, but if you went back, you're like, you had to live that euphemism. No, thank you.
Bread was divided.
Makes you wonder what we're living now.
Bread was divided according to status. Workers got the burnt bottom of the loaf. The family got the middle, and the guests got the top, the upper crust of the loaf.
And
it talks about it's long, but it's really good. I like how piss poor. He ain't got a pot to piss in. You know what that means? You ever heard that saying? He ain't got a pot to piss in
the yard.
He's piss poor.
No, yeah, they don't have the what is it called? Chamber pot.
Yeah, the tanners used to use urine to tan leathers and the skins. And so if you were poor, you would sell your urine to these tanners. You would collect your pee in a pee pot and you would sell it to these tanners. But if you were super poor, you didn't have a pot to piss in. You were either piss poor where you're selling it, or you didn't have a pot to piss in. And I've heard that for a long time. That's the truth. That you can still use urine for.
So the canopy thing.
Yeah.
This actually goes back, 1500, 1800, 2000 BC. I know it was a Jewish practice, and it might have been elsewhere as well. But and this might give you some more words as well. Your bridegroom would propose to the bride. There was a contract covenant that was signed. And then the groom had to go back home and build an insula, a room onto a house. It's where we get the word inn from. So a building with many rooms, insulas. At any rate, he didn't know when it was completed until the father said, "Yep, your room's good. Go get your bride." And then he would take his banner, which is what they would sign under, 2 sticks banner, and then he would move. It was called the bridal lope. Go from here to the bride. And then they would have their wedding, which usually lasts 6-7 days, depending on what else is going on.
Yeah.
So this banner, it's called a hoopah. CHOOPA or whatever in English, Hoopa. They do their vows underneath the banner. So they get married under the banner. Then the banner goes to their bed, and it's set up. And this is where the canopy beds come from. It's where they would consummate their marriage under there. They've consummated they've made their pledge in words. Now they're making their pledge in deed underneath the banner, and everything's done under the banner.
Ancient times sound like so much work.
No. They had no internet. They had nothing. So you did. You enjoyed life.
All right.
I would much rather be. I'm 200 years too late.
You think so?
Heck
Would
yeah.
you have a chamber pot to piss in?
No, I would go pee on a tree, dude.
Yeah, but you could be making money off of that urine. Or you could be a tanner and you could be go around collecting people's pee.
Who cares? We place way too much emphasis on money, man. Learn how to sustain yourself. You don't need money.
If you really, and I'm not going to explain this, you're going to have to look it up yourself. But if you, and I'll give you the Wi-Fi, go look up this on the Wi-Files. It is you like him. It's a very interesting episode on, what was it? The Philosopher's Stone.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what they
yeah.
It is a stone that is made from your own urine, doing this process for months and months and months. And they say that this was what they got this recipe from books that are like thousands of years old.
This seems like the world's oldest prank. Like you're tricking people into eat their own pee over a period.
Manny Pacquiao, Pac-Man, the boxer, he would drink his own urine before he fought.
That's
that's why he couldn't beat Mayweather right there.
He didn't have enough in the piss to drink.
Mayweather was just like, I'll just drink water. I'll just drink water and whoop your ass.
I miss.
It's not true. Mayweather fought our defensive game. That's what he did. So, you know, it was not an exciting fight, the Pacquiao Mayweather fight. All right. Hey, I got a couple of interesting news stories, guys. A couple of interesting. Let me see what you guys think about this. Wait, where'd it go?
Love it. I got one that's developing for you all.
According to Ground News, there's a story running on, at least on CNN and Washington Post, but a few other sites that are maybe a little less credible. Common household products are linked to over 350,000 deaths from heart disease, according to a study. Pull up the Washington Post.
We've been saying this for years, but it takes a study for you to believe it.
A study found the chemical exposure from DEHP linked to household plastics caused over 356,000 global deaths from heart disease in 2018, affecting those aged 55 to 64. The economic burden from these deaths was estimated between $510 billion to $3.74 trillion, highlighting significant healthcare and economic impacts. India had the highest death toll at 103,000 deaths, followed by China and Indonesia, as outlined in the study's findings. The analysis estimates that DEHP exposure accounts for more than 13% of the world's global heart disease mortality for ages 55 to 64. Now that we know that plastics are dangerous for us, what are we going to do about it? It takes
scientists to tell us, don't microwave your plastics. These microscopic plastic particles are getting into your body.
Diethylhexyl phthalate.
Do you know what dissolves those little plastic pieces? Do you know what instantly dissolves it?
Oh man, I almost gave you an answer that
Lemon.
Nice.
Lemon. Go. You would have to get some good stuff. Don't get some cheap lemon essential oil from Walmart. Get a good bottle of lemon essential oil. And I have had an old woman who lived to be about 97.
Drink lemon.
she would put a drop or two of lemon oil in her water every time she drank it. If you put lemon in on a piece of styrofoam, you will sit there and watch the styrofoam. It'll just eat away right before your eyes. So let me give you this real story real quick, and then I'll shut up about this.
All right.
This same woman went on a cruise one time, and she's sitting there at the table with some strangers and stuff, and the people were pouring water in a glass, and she asked for another glass, an empty glass, and they gave her one. And she took a couple of drops of lemon essential oil in her water. She took the cloth napkin and put it over her glass, and then she put the other glass on top, and she filtered the water and with that lemon. And when she took it off, everybody else at that table was like, "Can I get a good drop of that lemon oil for me?" Because all the stuff in the water was just nasty.
Mm.
And if you like lemon in your water, why wouldn't you use natural lemon oil or squeeze a lemon? You know, that is the same thing. So use lemons will kill. You get lemon oil and lemon in your body, that acid will eat away the little microscopic plastics. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just some crazy old hippie that believes.
Well, okay. I'm not, I don't disbelieve, or
No,
I don't know. I'm curious about the like chemical properties of what happens. So scientifically, I'm curious, but you must admit that
It's the chemicals
that
are still
something like a 93-year-old lady put lemon drops in her water every day. That's an anecdote. You know, that's a story, maybe totally true, but that's not.
I knew her. I called her Meemaw.
I know, but you can understand why people will refer to a study like, oh, there's a study of this or that, because like the alternative to that is like, well, you know, I heard from this guy, the second person that told
what
me
the,
him,
what the lemon has
whatever.
what the lemon has to be
Put it
doing
a
is
little
breaking
way in the butt,
bond.
and then you're good.
No, listen, JJ. No, you're right on this study thing and whatnot, but you're wrong too, because you're falling straight into the listening to what they're saying and not listening to somebody, a 93-year-old woman that's been doing it for 60 years. In radio, I've told my close friends, because I get paid from advertising, and I've told them, listen, I've done this for 30 years. The best advertisement is word of mouth. That's the best it will blow out any ad that you put on the radio or the television. And I hate to say that.
That's true,
because that's how I make my money. But I have seen it for 30 years. My job has been to get you to pay attention to what I'm saying for 30 seconds so I can tell you about Dave's widget shop.
You're right, but you're talking about sales, not science.
It's a science.
Which is a science.
No. When you're saying that the best word of mouth is the best that's the best sales technique, because people trust people.
Completely deleting this thing that we've talked about a million times, and it's that JJ, the scientist, discovers this really crazy thing and's like, oh my God, guys, look at this. And the guys that give you money for everything in your life, home, car, feeding your children, and your laboratory, they say, you shouldn't say that. If you do, we're not going to fund you.
Yeah, there's commercial interests.
You're both arguing word of mouth. It's just who the authority of the word of mouth is what it comes down to. But I think
question authority.
I am. Well, you're making her an authority, the 93-year-old woman, and you're making your scientist an authority.
I'm not really. I see what you're saying, but the reason I would take more credence in that rather than
because you know her, there's a personal awareness.
Even if I didn't know her, I'm the type of person that's like, I'm like JJ. I want to know what does this scientifically, but I'm more inclined to believe my great uncle Bob, who said that if you chew on a hickory stick for 20 minutes, it'll get rid of your warts on your goober. You know, it's probably right.
My thing that I always try to caution with is experience is just that. It's not truth. It might be truth, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is true just because it happens. Like every time
she might have lived to be 97 or 90, whatever she was, because of her genetics, and it had nothing to do
correct.
with essential oils
Right.
or whatnot. I'm just saying. I'm saying
a correlation.
When people, if I'm presenting, this has been my whole life. When I'm presenting an argument and someone has a defense to that, well, she could have lived from genetics. Now, everything that I've said in my argument has been dismissed because this is a possibility. And that's always pissed me off. I'm like, okay, this is a possibility, but this is also a possibility, And it seems like, I'm not saying y'all, I'm saying this has been my whole life. It's people have been like, okay, so what you're saying is wrong because this could be happening.
Let me state for the record, this study linked to 350,000 deaths. I don't believe that necessarily anything more than anything else. What I would believe is if multiple different groups could perform the same experiments and replicate the test. So if there were more 93-year-old ladies that did essential oil and they all lived the same long and then none of them had weird genetic.
Nobody knows that.
That's the point. That's the point. That's called science. That's science. That's replicating a hypothesis and prove or disprove it.
What have I stepped into one of my freaking Twilight Zone stories here? What the hell is going on? You are the most open-minded, closed-minded person I've ever met in my life.
Clopen. My wife calls that clopen.
You are a clopen-minded person. There are some things that you are like, that is so fascinating and that is really cool. And then there's other things that you're like, that's dumb and you're dumb.
I'm clopen.
You are clopen-minded.
I just told her.
I like what Redhead Ron said here. Data is the plural of antidote. LOL. Oh, where did it just go? It just popped back on there. My
that's the opposite of
the science, but the other variables that alter reporting, such as bias or biases, corruption, and funding. And for
and you don't
with the studies, you really can twist data however you want.
Oh yes, you can.
You don't have to report everything. You just report what you're wanting to report.
And very often the model is partially predictive and doesn't have all the variables, or it has too much. That's
when
the
you
thing about
start with a hypothesis, you're already kind of like biased
at this rate.
No. No, you should be okay. So here, like the hypothesis is lemon oil destroys styrofoam or plastic or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's a claim. Okay, so based on Deke's claim, then I would go and test that hypothesis. I would take lemon oil and put it on different kinds of materials.
To prove the hypothesis.
No, you test. Okay, first of all, that's not how science works. No. Stop.
I understand.
Stop. You do not seek to prove anything. When you're doing science, you are attempting to disprove. Okay, if you have a hypothesis and you can disprove it, you have rejected the hypothesis.
You're attempting to replicate it or disprove it. If you go in to disprove it, you are exactly what he said. You're going in with a bias.
Guys, this is a technical thing. You have a hypothesis, then you always take whatever your hypothesis. Lemon oil destroys plastic. Okay, fine. The opposite of that is lemon oil never destroys plastic. That's the null hypothesis. And then you conduct your tests and you attempt to reject the null hypothesis. Reject the null hypothesis. That is, if you can do the lemon oil test and it does not destroy plastic, then you can reject the null hypothesis.
Right.
And it's called falsification. You never prove your hypothesis. You never do. You always what science does is it disproves alternative hypothesis.
And you don't see a problem with that. You don't see a problem with lemon oil destroys styrofoam. I'm going to test this. Oh, it does. So I can't report it because the only thing I'm going to say is if it doesn't. Is that what you're saying? Did I run him off? Is he going to go get styrofoam?
What I think happens with the lemon oil thing is that the lemon destroys the bond, the connection.
Yes.
It's not because the chemicals are still there.
So then
They
you
just
would
can't
explore
bond
other
anymore.
things. So like, what are the causal mechanisms? You just can, if you can't disprove that it dissolves styrofoam, then you would look at what are the mechanics of it, and you would like, are there other conditions that interfere with this? So like, anyway, you don't ever end up
I see what you're saying, but my
Yeah.
main argument is that data can be manipulated by what Ryan
Yes, I
said.
agree.
There's several different factors.
I agree.
There was a small radio station that I worked at that in ratings, the main one is called Arbitron. If you've got your Arbitron ratings and you go to a business, that's the top dog. This really shows. But on Arbitron, they give a big circle of all the counties. They'll say you got 20 counties in your circle that you reach. Okay. You can pick which counties you want to go in your report. So I can sit there and go, well, I'm number 1 out of 20 counties. I'm number 1 in 6 of them. So I'm going to pick these 6 in my report. I generate the report. I show it to Dave's widget shop and say, look, I'm beating out all these stations. And Dave don't know any better. I have manipulated the data for my personal gain. They used to do it there. It's it happens all the time. My job has been to trick you, JJ, into going to Dave's widget shop.
Right.
That's been one of my primary
Best
jobs.
widgets
Besides
ever.
talking about music on the radio,
can
I make commercials.
Find some of that here on youtube.com/internet dads. There's some of his widget stuff is over there.
No, my widget stuff is all on Amazon.com under the Andy Rudd books.
Oh, yes, that's where it is.
I've been trying to record the books. I've been trying to record the request, but they have been replacing the cross ties on the railroad track out here. And that it's really freaking fascinating how they do it. They got like 20 different little mini vehicles that go along, and one has to like take out the bolts and one has to do this. And then you got this one big one that moves and picks it up, shoves one out and shoves it underneath and lays the track back down. It's really cool. And it's been loud as hell out here for a week. So I haven't been able to record and I've been doing other things.
Well, you definitely should do some. So are you going to be able to link those to your ebook like purchases? So like the Kindle version is linked to the audiobook version.
Yeah. I'm still
Dave missed it, but I kind of pitched an idea to Deacon for his short stories.
Off air yesterday.
Yeah,
we'll pitch it on air because it's a good idea.
Hey, I pitched Deke a good chapter ending or 2 chapter ending for one of the books. It was gold.
I'm gonna have to give y'all writing.
I don't need squat.
No, nothing.
I just want to see you succeed, sir.
Well, guys, let's see. There was another story, but I don't know if it's so I think it, like with this household plastics thing, you would probably need to go who did the study, and has anybody done a core?
And this is all big hypothetical. This is a hypothetical conversation about lemon oil and styrofoam. I don't know if there's even a study. This was coming from my personal experience and people that I've talked to, and me actually seeing what it does, and me believing certain things about science class. I didn't go into figuring out what molecules dissolve what other molecules, but common freaking sense and science, paying attention in science class really kind of was like, oh, well, that kind of makes sense.
Well, I mean, I do not disbelieve that lemon oil, which is acidic, can eat stuff. So
you don't believe that? I've done it a million times.
I do not disbelieve it.
You can't use double negatives, man.
Yeah, you can. UPS is going to cut 20,000 jobs, and they're closing dozens of buildings because fewer people are buying stuff on Amazon, because probably stuff on Amazon is getting more expensive because tariffs. So Amazon's
UPS lost a lot of Amazon's business.
Oh, is that why?
The vast majority of Amazon stuff that I've ordered has come through USPS. It used
or
to be
their own trucks. Do you guys have? I got Amazon trucks.
I live in the sticks, man. I live in the sticks.
Oh my, what's going on
What
here?
is that?
This is a styrofoam plate. You see the edges? That is
Oh, okay, yeah.
lemon oil.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely. Oh, look at that. That's the cool stuff. It's just eating the molecule breakdown stuff.
I mean, I accidentally had water. This happened to me at the radio station, this old radio station I worked at, when I was taking a lot of this different essential oils and stuff.
Don't breathe those gases in,
And
though.
my styrofoam cup ate away on the side, and I didn't know what the crap was going on.
Right.
So I mean, that wasn't. I mean, I'm just showing you that it does. I'm not trying to prove you wrong. I'm just like,
well, that's why they put wax in. You know, they used to the paper cups for coffees. They'd always line them with wax.
But it's not going to kill you.
And keeps the water in.
And if you, all I'm saying is, it's not going to kill you. If you like lemon and you are concerned maybe about this, maybe just put a little extra lemon in your water. What's it going to hurt you? It could kill the plastics. The little microscopic plastic particles that are in. Because when you were talking about first, I was thinking, man, this would be a good short story. 100 years in the future, so humans have so many plastics, microplastics that got into our body that our skins and our bones.
I have a conference call, guys.
Oh, JJ's 10 minutes late for his conference call.
Oh my God. All right.
All right. Just end.
You guys tell jokes. You guys tell jokes.
Good. You can end. See you tomorrow.
Politicians and talking heads lying left and right. You can help us bring facts into the light. Don't let your dog